Yo, what up, everybody? This is your boy, Nothing But Bangers, aka MBB, aka Bangers, aka the guy that's trying to get you some info about these tournaments. So, even though global launch is a few days away, we do have a few events starting today, Friday, October the 25th, that will be happening over the span of the next 3 days. So, Friday we have a tournament. Saturday we have a tournament, and Sunday we have a tournament. So there's literally a good chance that if you're watching content already, like mine, you might be playing in these tournaments, or if you're trying to just see what this game's about, you might be interested in checking out the very new tournament scene that we're starting to see for a game that has yet to globally launch. So let's get into the details about these tournaments, and then in the second part of this video, let me give you some ideas on what cards you might see, what decks you might see, and maybe some predictions. So really quickly, just going to the event that will be starting in a few hours from potentially the time that you're watching this video. It may have actually already started and or ended, but this is going to be hosted by Ursi. You can check her out on Twitch. The biggest reason why I know her is I was streaming on Twitch one time and she rated me. It was really cool. I didn't expect it at all. And, ever since then, I've tried to show some love going back and then, trying to give her at least some viewership from my end whenever I see her streaming. But let's get into the details of this tournament really quickly. This is going to be a Swiss round tournament, meaning that you're going to play a certain amount of rounds depending on how many people are entered. And then from there, there's going to be a cut to maybe top 4, maybe top 8, or maybe top 16. Now, this tournament is capped in terms of entries. So if you notice that you didn't get a chance to sign up, it may be that the tournament got fulfilled, or it might be that the tournament has already started. It's worth noting that these are 45-minute rounds, and it's going to be best of 3 in the top cut. That seems to be kind of standard for a lot of these tournaments. And then you're going to want to make sure that you screenshot your victory screen and so on. But basically, the really cool thing about this tournament too is that there is a prize structure. So if you get first, you're going to get 50. If you get second, you're going to get 20. If you get third or fourth, you're going to get 15. So it looks like there's going to be no third and fourth place match. It'll just be, hey, if you made it to top 4, you're going to get paid, for that entry. It's going to be paid via PayPal. So shout out to Ursi for putting on this event. I look forward to covering these tournaments because if you don't know, I actually do cover the results of these tournaments, and I do have some juicy statistics to show you towards the end of this video about some cards that you may see. All right, now this is a tournament that I actually have entered right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to play it, just schedule dependent, but this is also the same people that hosted the tournament that I won last weekend. They hosted the biggest tournament for Pokemon Pocket so far. Really cool because, again, this tournament is doing a prize structure as well. $40 for first, $20 for second, then third and fourth are going to get 10 each. There is some information if you want to get into, check out their Twitter and so on. And then, obviously they have a Discord as well. But this is really cool because they're doing something a little bit different than Ursi. This is going to be a 2-day event, so that's something to keep in mind as well. If you qualify for day 2, you're going to have to play on Sunday. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out which tournament you want to play in throughout this weekend. But the thing is, there's no entry fee on any of these tournaments, which is really awesome to see. These people are putting on events, just for the goodness of the community. Really cool to see that. Again, there is check-in policies. All of these tournaments are hosted on Limitless, so I'll leave the link in the description so you can check that out as well. So that way, pretty much everything is going to go through Limitless. So basically, you'll create an account. You will sign up. You'll submit your deck list an hour before this particular event. I'm not sure when Ursi wants the deck list, but usually these tournaments are also open deck lists, so you can see your opponent's deck right before you play them as well. And, hey, if you're going to stream any of this, I highly recommend streaming on a delay if you're worried about winning, because there will be some people that, say, hey, man, this $40 means a lot, this $20 means a lot, this $10 means a lot, so let me snipe you and try to get a advantage. Best of 3 in top cut. But again, really cool because, hey, if you have an X2 record at the end of Saturday, you basically are guaranteed for Sunday. So it kind of goes over it right there. A maximum of 32 players can compete the next day. Everyone with a record of X2 or better will advance. So pretty cool there. you know, you're not going to be worried too much about losing on the bubble if you're X and 1, you know, going into that last round. So that's pretty nice as well. Now let's go into a couple of the other tournaments really quickly. This is going to be also on Saturday. So make sure I highlight the date as well. Yeah, remember the one I just went over, the Pocket Legends with the prize support. That's going to be the 26th of Saturday. And then this one is going to be also on the 26th, but it's starting about half the day later, right? About, you know, 5 hours later, right? So keep in mind, you know, is it possible to play in multiple events on the same day? Yeah, it's possible, especially if you have alternate accounts and, you know, you have different decks that you might want to test. This tournament squad has also hosted a tournament before, I believe, as well. So, you know, some of these people have already hosted tournaments, so that's really cool as well. But this kind of goes over the details of the tournament, and it looks like it's going to be Swiss with a cut. Basically, you know, it's an asymmetrical cut, which basically means everybody with an X2 record will make it. So there's not necessarily a bubble if you're X and 1, kind of just like I just mentioned in the previous tournament. Make sure you check out these rules as well. That's going to be one of the tips that I try to give, but it's good to know, like, hey, how long are the rounds? You know, that's a really big rule. Like 45 minutes seems to be kind of the norm for the rounds, and that may seem a little bit long for some people. But again, you know, I would rather have too much time than not enough time and suddenly we're just drawing. So keep that in mind as well. But again, there is check-ins as well. If you don't check in time, you do get a game loss or potentially a match loss. So keep that in mind when you are looking at the rules and trying to figure out which one to sign up for. Lastly, this is the last tournament I will cover before I get into some details about how to prepare, what decks you might see, and so on. And I just want to remind everybody, I appreciate you tuning in, taking time out of your day to watch my content. I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button, so that way you can be a part of my community and get alerts whenever new videos from myself get published. But let's talk about this tournament really quickly. You can check out, this is the one, the tournament hosts are going to be the same people that host the Reddit. And so, you know, there's that. And then you can go ahead and sign up for this tournament. This will be on Sunday, the 27th of October. So you have a tournament Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And for this tournament, there are some people that kind of might, you know, want to only have 1 day to play. So this might be the day that they play. It is worth noting that they do not necessarily give points for drawing in this tournament. That's very important to know. So there's no reason to intentionally draw unless, you know, maybe you're XO, right? You're just undefeated going into that last round. If you're X1, maybe there's a reason to draw. That's just kind of, it just kind of depends, honestly. But again, this is going to be best of 3 all the way around. And then again, in top cut, there will be a single elimination bracket, which is pretty much the same for all of these. One big highlight to kind of know, there's only 35 minutes to complete this match. So you definitely want to make sure that you have everything ready to go once you go ahead and get ready for this tournament, because sometimes it can take, you know, a couple minutes to find your opponent, track them down, and make sure that, you know, get them in the chat and everything, and discuss password and all that. So make sure you're on your high horse for this particular tournament. As far as prizes, I believe the only prize in this will be a role in their Discord. So kind of keep that in mind too. If you're trying to decide, hey, I only want to play in one tournament, maybe you want to play in one of the tournaments with prize support. I don't know. That's completely up to you. But again, all these tournaments are free, and it's really cool to see these people doing this. I'm very happy that the tournament scene is off to a pretty good start. So definitely check it out, and let's get to some more details on how to prepare for this tournament and what you might see in these tournaments. So before I get into the details of some of the previous tournament results, I just want to give you a couple of big pointers. One, make sure you know how draws work in whatever tournament you're entering, and make sure you know how time works, whether it's a 35-minute round or a 45-minute round. I have a whole video dedicated to preparing for your first tournament, so make sure you check that out if you haven't. It's just a really good way to kind of prepare for tournaments, including like, how do I test? You know, because one big thing that I would say that I don't mention in that video is testing decks. make sure that you're testing, 5 games or 10 games against a specific matchup at least just to get a feel for the matchup. And like, don't be so quick to change things after 1 or 2 games. Like, give it a little bit of time when you're testing your deck. And then obviously don't be results oriented. Really look like, did your opponent high roll? Because look, there's one big thing with Pokemon. If your opponent's always flipping heads, you were probably going to lose anyways, right? So just try to look at it more from an analytical point of view than, just saying, hey, this deck lost every single time, it must be terrible. Well, like, why did it lose? Like, what is there a card that could have been different that would have swung the matchup, right? So kind of keep that in mind when you're testing. But looking at these results, I have a couple of tournaments that I'm going to highlight really quickly. And if you want a more in detail breakdown, I have some videos that should be popping up at the end of this video too that kind of go over each of these tournaments. But there's been a few tournaments that I want to allude to. This is the second tournament in one of these hosts. So the tournament that I'm entering, I entered the third one. This was the second one. So I know that might be a little confusing. Some people might get it, some people might not. But let's take a look at these statistics really quickly. You'll notice that a lot of people are playing the following cards. A lot of people are playing Sabrina, which, makes sense. But a lot of people are also playing Potion. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out your damage. Like, hey, am I going to be able to 1-hit, 2-hit, knock out a Pokemon in a specific matchup? A lot of people are bringing Potion. And then for the grass decks, a lot of those decks are obviously bringing Erica. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out matchups. Another thing to look at is X-Speed seems to be a card that almost every deck is utilizing. The last cards that I'll highlight are Giovanni and Red Card. And one thing that you'll notice when you take a look at these top cuts is there seems to be red card players in every top cut. So regardless of how you feel about the card, it's something to be aware of. Now, whether or not you choose to play red card, that's completely up to you, okay? Some people prefer Pokedex, but it's worth noting, I've never seen anybody in a top cut that's playing the card Pokedex. So take that for what you will, right? Giovanni is also another card that a lot of people are using. And so keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out, is my Pokemon going to be able to survive? Should I be testing Giovanni and so on? Giovanni has steadily gotten actually more popular when you take a look at the third tournament. So this is the third tournament from this set of tournaments. This is the one that I won with Venusaur and Exeggutor. But here's a few things that I'll point out in terms of data. Red card, again, continues to be a card that people see and play in the top cut, even all the way down to the finals, okay? Giovanni, it's seeing a lot of attention. 13 out of 16 players played Giovanni in this previous tournament with over 128 people, actually. Not over. It was exactly 128. Serena, obviously. Potion makes sense, right? Because, again, it's just transitioning data from the previous tournament to this tournament. So maybe this means if you have a couple of slots open in your deck, maybe Potion is the card that you want to go to. And then X-Speed, every single player in the top 16 brought this card. So keep that in mind. If you're new to the game, if you're trying to prepare, trying to build or test a deck, these are cards that you're going to see across from you, and they're probably cards that you should entertain playing in your own deck. As far as deck choices, I do think that the most popular decks will continue to be played. What decks are those? Gardevoir, Mewtwo, and Pikachu EX. Those two decks are going to make up a large amount of the field. So you need to be prepared for how you deal with those decks. The other decks to look out for, I would look out for Blaine. I think Blaine is going to be a big factor because it's coming off of a top 8 performance in this tournament that I'm referencing right here. It also won the non-EX tournament and had a very strong showing. And it continues to be probably the best one prize deck. What does that mean? Hey, if we're trading prizes, my prizes are only going to be 1 prize. Your knockouts, because you play EXs, are potentially 2, right? So that means, hey, even if we're trading, my 1 prize deck should come out on top. So I would be on alert for Blaine, potentially Charizard, especially with people net decking the Venusaur and Exeggutor deck that I was able to pilot and win with. So I do think that a lot of people will have fire on their mind. I think that Blaine will be a very popular choice. And Blaine, interestingly, has a pretty interesting matchup with Mewtwo. I think Blaine actually might have the advantage against the Mewtwo deck, even if Mewtwo curves Gardevoir. because again, the access to Ninetales and Blaine, and then the access to 1 energy attacks with Rapidash and Blaine or Giovanni really opens up that Mewtwo to being 2-hit KO pretty reliably. So again, I do expect to see a lot of Blaines, a lot of Mewtwo, and a lot of Pikachu. So what does this mean? Is there a chance for Water to sneak in there? I don't know. Is there a chance for Venusaur and Exeggutor to repeat? I don't think so. Personally, I think it was just a good meta call for that specific tournament. So again, I don't know exactly how this is going to shape out. I think this is a really, really interesting meta, even though a lot of the top decks are pretty well known. I don't think that we'll see necessarily anything brand new. I think that we'll probably see a lot of the same. But again, if your deck can't handle Mewtwo Gardevoir, it can't handle Pikachu EX, or it can't handle Blaine, I think that that's something that you need to think about. Make sure that you're aware of those matchups. If you're a budget player, Blaine, a great option. So there you go. There's a breakdown. And again, if you enjoyed this content, definitely drop me a subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And let me know, what deck do you think is going to be successful this weekend? Do you think one deck is going to dominate? Let me know in the comments. I want to know. But stay tuned to the end of this video, and there should be some videos popping up right about now.